My brother Ethan was everything a small-town swim star was supposed to be. State record scholarship offers the works. Then one dive changed everything. It happened during a routine practice. Veronica, our assistant coach, pushed him to try a revolutionary dive technique she swore would cut seconds off his time. Dad was in the bleachers beaming as always, proud of his golden boy, but the dive went wrong. 1 second Ethan was slicing through the air, the next he was floating face down. He was pulled from the water limp, and the silence that followed the screams was louder than anything I've ever heard. The doctors called it lucky that he had any sensation below the chest. We didn't see it as luck, we saw it as the end of his dreams. 6 months after Ethan's accident, Dad married Veronica. He said it was about stability, said she understood our pain. What he meant was she made him feel okay, pretending things weren't broken. She moved into our home like she owned it, packed up Ethan's trophies, called them a barrier to recovery, turned the weight room he used for training into her new home office. Ethan didn't complain. He just wheeled himself back to his room and shut the door. I tried bringing him food. She blocked me. Tough love, she said. Dad nodded along like she was some prophet. Then she signed me up for the swim team, said I had potential, said Ethan wouldn't want me wasting my gift. The same pool where my brother lost everything. No thank you, but Dad backed her. So I went. Veronica became my coach, barking critiques and comparing me to Ethan constantly. Your brother wouldn't have quit, she'd snap whenever I gasped for breath. Sometimes I wore Ethan's old team jacket just to feel close to him. I caught him scribbling in a notebook once, something he slammed shut the second I got near. She caught me bringing him a sandwich one night and made me throw it away. If he's hungry he can come eat like the rest of us. So I smiled through dinners while she and Dad talked about beach vacations like we weren't all quietly falling apart. I suggested something, an adaptive swim meet for injured athletes, a way for Ethan to compete again even if it looked different. The team loved the idea. 2 more kids had recently quit the team after getting injured under Veronica's training, but when I brought it up at dinner she froze. Dad looked like he'd swallowed glass. Patronizing, she said she already had a training camp planned that weekend for serious swimmers. Dad slammed his fist on the table, said Ethan got hurt because he lacked discipline. Veronica, smiling like a snake, added that he needed to face reality. A crash sounded from Ethan's room, followed by the screech of his wheelchair dragging back into the shadows. At practice the next day, Veronica announced we'd be learning advanced dive techniques. Then she demonstrated the exact dive that shattered my brother's spine. Marcus, one of Ethan's old teammates, went pale when he tried to leave. She threatened to report him to scouts. Then she pointed at me. Show them how a real athlete handles fear. I froze, every nerve screamed. All I saw was Ethan hitting the water wrong. I climbed down and told her I quit. Marcus followed me to the parking lot and showed me what he'd been collecting: videos of Veronica pushing kids into dangerous drills, emails covering up injuries, injury reports that had never been filed. 2 other kids had permanent damage, quietly paid off. Then he showed me her employment record, fired from 2 other programs for safety violations. Marcus showed me her employment record, fired from 2 other programs for safety violations, swept under the rug each time with glowing recommendations from coaches who just wanted her gone. I ran home, heart pounding, ready to tell Dad, but Ethan's door was open and his notebook was gone. I found him in the garage trying to burn it. I pulled the pages from the flames and he broke down. Veronica had made him do the band dive again after he confronted her with research that proved it was outlawed years ago due to multiple spinal injuries. She told him he needed to prove her wrong, so he did, and she watched it happen. He didn't say anything because for the first time in a long time Dad had looked at him with pride and he didn't want to take that away. I stood there holding scorched pages covered in training logs and notes about band techniques, knowing I had more than enough to bury her. I hid the notebook in my jacket. Just as Veronica pulled into the driveway, Ethan grabbed my wrist, his fingers pressing hard with desperation. I helped him back to his room, and that night we were faster than we had been in months, moving quietly, preparing. I stayed up printing copies of everything, scanning photos, saving backups to multiple drives. Dinner that night felt like dining with a viper. Veronica smiled, talked about new season plans while I gripped my fork like it was a lifeline. After dinner I cornered Dad in his study. I told him everything. Every lie, every injury, every cover-up, every risk she'd forced Ethan and others to take, and all he did was blink, said I was being paranoid, told me I needed therapy, and closed the door in my face. The next morning Ethan's physical therapist called, said they couldn't continue his care unless insurance paperwork was updated and signed, and that they needed to verify a stable home environment. I stared at the papers while Veronica hummed in the kitchen like nothing was wrong. I lied on every page, called our home safe and stable because Ethan needed help more than I needed to be right. Veronica found the paperwork, praised my maturity, told Dad I was finally growing up. I hated the way her voice sounded like victory. Then Ethan's wheelchair broke and Dad was gone for work. Marcus texted urgently wanting to meet, but I stayed and fixed the chair with duct tape and prayers. By the time I read Marcus's messages again it was too late. The last one said, "Never mind, talk to your stepmom." I was wrong. Days later Veronica had a public breakdown at Ethan's medical appointment. Crying, trembling, saying she blamed herself. Nurses swarmed around her comforting her, and Ethan squeezed her hand like he forgave her. After that he started defending her, said she was there for him, said I didn't understand what he lost, said she helped him when no one else would. It felt like betrayal, but worse because it looked like healing. I kept digging anyway. One day she left her coaching materials on the dining table and I found the Federation's official rulebook open to the band dive section with her own sticky notes and highlights. She had known she had trained them anyway. I snapped photos. Then she walked in, bag slung over her shoulder, looked at me but said nothing and took her papers with a calm that scared me more than anger. That night she told Dad I had violated her privacy. He agreed, said I was crossing lines. The family group chat turned into a minefield. Every message twisted, every concern I shared used as proof I was unstable. I contacted the Swim Federation directly, but days later the school counselor pulled me into their office and mentioned Veronica's concerns. They said I was struggling with trauma, that I was showing signs of emotional instability, that I'd always been intense ever since Grandma died, that grief can make people rewrite reality. Their voices were soft like they were talking to a broken animal. I couldn't breathe, my body was screaming the truth and no one could hear me. Then Veronica started planting seeds about the cost of Ethan's therapy. Maybe it wasn't worth it, she said. Maybe we should look at different approaches. I knew what that meant. Shut up or Ethan suffers. I went to a swim parent at the grocery store, told them everything in a shaking voice, and they looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Security escorted me out of the store and the Facebook group buzzed about my breakdown. That night Marcus's dad called, said his son wouldn't speak out, said scholarships were at risk. In the background I heard Marcus crying. Then Veronica slipped up, said Ethan called her while she was driving, but pool security footage showed her car parked an hour before the call. It was minor, but it was something. I smiled and a neighbor saw and told Dad. He said I was showing inappropriate emotional reactions, that I wasn't grieving right, that maybe I needed help. That night I understood. We weren't disagreeing, we were at war, and she was winning. She started volunteering at Ethan's adaptive sports program and I watched her push his wheelchair into buildings with gentle hands while quoting his favorite sayings. The other families adored her. Dad said I had thrown dishes in a fight with her, a fight I remembered as calm and tearful. I started recording myself to prove I was sane. Catherine, my best friend since forever, sent screenshots of me from years ago praising Veronica, saying she was the best coach ever. Catherine said her daughter needed Veronica's recommendation now and she couldn't take sides. Even kids weren't safe. Little Nathan, my cousin, sat on my lap and told me Auntie Veronica said you were sick and scared and not thinking right. The doorbell camera betrayed me. It showed me leaving Ethan after the notebook burning, but I remembered staying with him, holding him, comforting him, but the footage said otherwise. Veronica had found him, not me. The school counselor filed another report citing parental alienation. I only found out because Dad had to consult a lawyer for insurance. The system wasn't just ignoring me, it was turning me into the threat. I checked Ethan's browser history. He had searched everything: banned techniques, injury data, reporting unsafe coaching. All the week before the accident he had known, he had tried. I was too late. I became obsessed with Veronica's coaching blog, full of motivational quotes wrapped around hidden admissions. Only those willing to break limits become great. She had been broadcasting her guilt with hashtags. Then the court subpoenaed my therapist. They wanted notes from every session, everything I'd said about Veronica. All my fears and thoughts now turned into evidence against me. I tried recording her again, but she saw my phone and didn't flinch. Later Dad called me a traitor, said I was destroying the family. I tracked her every movement, documented every missed appointment I met with Jonathan, the pool maintenance guy. He confirmed safety rules had been ignored. 2 days later he was anonymously reported for misconduct. He called me crying, said he had a family to feed, said he couldn't be involved anymore. Then I saw Veronica wearing Ethan's team sweatshirt to bed, his medals on her dresser. It felt like she was replacing him, not just physically but spiritually. Then came the deal. She'd arrange for Ethan to see his teammates again if I dropped my accusations. I refused. Dad said I was hurting Ethan on purpose. I found that my memory of the accident was off by 30 minutes, just 30 minutes, but enough to make them question everything. If I was wrong about that, what else might I be wrong about? We were all living in different versions of the same story and the truth was drowning between them. Ethan had stayed in the program not because he trusted her but because he wanted to protect others. He needed her recommendation for future scholarships and hoped that by staying close he could shield younger swimmers from what had happened to him. I was too blinded by rage to see that. Then Kathy, his ex, showed up again. She admitted she had known Veronica's methods were unsafe before the accident but said nothing to protect her own career. Now she wanted to clear her conscience without consequences. I told her to leave Ethan alone. I stopped sleeping. I spent nights going over every piece of evidence, printing, organizing, labeling. I skipped doctor appointments, couldn't afford them. Now Veronica had control over our family finances and I had no job, no car, no access to print more evidence unless I asked her for help. Every step felt like walking through a trap. I saw Dad and Veronica at Ethan's favorite restaurant laughing over lunch. I lost it. I screamed, cried, made a scene. The staff remembered Ethan from his golden days, now they remembered me as the one who broke down. I wasn't allowed back. I lost my job at the bookstore. The owner said I brought too much drama. I found out later my replacement was someone from Veronica's church group. Maybe coincidence, maybe not. I didn't care. I was sleeping on couches, bouncing between friends who still believed me. I started hearing that word too much. Delusional, unwell, obsessed. Veronica had replaced Ethan's plaques with new posters, generic motivational junk. I believe in me. I felt like I was disappearing from my own home. Dad asked me not to come back until I could behave like family again. Then Jonathan, the pool guy I'd relied on, got suspended. Someone filed an anonymous complaint about his work. His wife posted on social media about lost income and injustice, and for a moment I felt like I'd hurt someone good just for trying to win. I was addicted to the fight. I couldn't stop. My aunt asked the one question that broke me: what if you're wrong? I didn't have an answer. That silence betrayed me. I started confessing my flaws, said I overreacted when Grandma died, that I obsessed over injustice too long, that maybe I saw patterns that weren't there, but I knew this wasn't. That Ethan had cried in the garage, not from confusion but from memory, from pain I couldn't erase. That I found out my therapist had been subpoenaed. The court now had access to every session note. Everything I had ever said about Veronica was now in her hands. I felt exposed, raw, flayed. I tried to record a conversation with Dad about Ethan's care, but he found the phone and said it was betrayal. I tracked Veronica's schedule, learned where she went, what she said, who she spoke to. I found out she'd been posting inspirational coaching videos, quoting phrases Ethan used years ago, absorbing his voice as her own. Then the thread unraveled. Veronica's daughter from a previous relationship came to visit. She was just a child, and she mentioned that mommy practiced that scary dive alone at the pool and kept saying she couldn't get the splash right. I froze. Veronica had practiced it herself. She knew it was dangerous. She knew, and she still made Ethan do it. Then I found the second recording. Ethan had filmed himself the night before the accident, face pale, eyes full of fear, voice trembling. He explained the band technique, the pressure she put on him, the guilt he carried for the younger swimmers. He had chosen to sacrifice himself, hoping it would be the last time anyone else got hurt. I backed it up 5 times, kept copies on flash drives in lockers, mailed one to a friend in case something happened to me. Then I found the insurance documents too. Separate claims with contradictory stories about the accident, both notarized. Veronica had committed insurance fraud, the kind of fraud the system actually cares about. I built a case, boxes of files, videos, timelines, photos, statements. I had enough. The pool manager finally agreed to speak. He admitted the diving platforms hadn't been inspected in over a year. The safety mats were expired. He'd been told to falsify inspection logs to protect the school. Now he feared legal trouble and told me everything. The insurance company moved fast, faster than police, faster than school board. Their money was at stake, and fraud speaks louder than grief. They confirmed misuse of funds, fake safety training logs, discrepancies in injury reports. Veronica's coaching license was suspended before the mediation even began. When the day arrived, I walked into that room alone. Dad sat with Veronica, her lawyer, beside them. The mediator between us, Ethan, waited in the hallway, flanked by 2 of his old teammates who came quietly to support him. I began my presentation, laid out the evidence one piece at a time: emails, injury reports, training logs, the coaching blog, video of the band dive, news articles, audio files. Ethan's voice on that second video recording filled the room. His words trembled but didn't break. He admitted he knew he might never walk again, but he did it to protect others. The room shifted. People stopped breathing. Veronica's face cracked. Real emotion, not performance, guilt or something close to it. She whispered something about only wanting to matter, to win, to be loved. Dad reached for her hand and stopped. He looked at her like he saw her for the first time as the woman who paralyzed his son. The mediator called a break. People wandered out, stunned. Ethan rolled into the hallway, tears in his eyes as he listened to himself speaking from the past. I sat next to him in silence. We didn't say anything, but I knew he forgave me. When we returned, the insurance investigator laid it all out. Criminal charges were possible: fraud, misrepresentation, violation of athletic safety codes. Veronica's lawyer tried to settle, tried to spin it into misunderstanding, but the weight of evidence was too heavy. Then the mediator turned to me and asked if I wanted to push for jail time or choose a rehabilitation-focused resolution. If I chose the latter, Veronica would lose her license, undergo years of therapy, and never work with minors again. No jail, but public accountability. I looked at Ethan, remembered his voice, remembered that he had chosen pain to protect others. Destroying Veronica wouldn't undo the past, but removing her from power would stop future harm. I chose the second option. Veronica broke again, real, not performative, tears, her voice shaking as she talked about her own abuse as a young athlete, how she thought pushing hard made champions, how she didn't know how to stop the cycle. Her trauma wasn't an excuse, but it explained the monster she became. The fallout was immediate. The swim program was placed under investigation. Ethan's care was fully funded. Veronica began court-ordered therapy. The school hired new coaches. The federation updated their safety protocols using Ethan's old research. Dad Moved out, started therapy. He said he needed to understand how he let it happen. Some family never forgave me, others finally apologized. Catherine was the first. She admitted she always knew something was off but didn't know how to help. Ethan and I went home together after the final mediation. Our house looked the same but felt different, empty of tension, filled with possibility. He pulled out a notebook, started sketching plans for adaptive sports teams, safety curriculum, foundations for injured athletes. He turned pain into purpose. Later I enrolled in advocacy training, wanted to use everything I'd learned to protect other kids. Dad slowly rebuilt trust with actions, not words. Veronica remained in therapy, her coaching license gone. Whether she changed or not was no longer my concern. Ethan's injury didn't define the end, it became a beginning, and though we didn't get perfect justice, we got something more powerful. We got change, real change, and in a world that chooses silence, comfort, and easy lies that felt like victory. Ethan's sacrifice mattered, it saved lives, and that had to be enough.